This is Viterbi Voices, the podcast, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more directly from our faculty, students, and other members of the engineering community here at the University of Southern California.
This is episode 113, featuring USC's Center for Artificial Intelligence in Society's student branch, or CAIS++. Tune in for a great episode about how this group came to be and what they're working on today.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. This is episode
113.
113. It's like a Pixar episode.
What?
Do you not know that?
No.
Hold that thought. We'll get back to it. As usual, I'm one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And my name is Ria Chowdhury. I'm a senior studying biomedical engineering here at USC and also one of the co-hosts.
And my name is Audrey Roberts, and I'm a sophomore studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
Awesome, Audrey. Welcome back in. So you don't know anything about 113? A113?
I don't.
No. It sounds like an airplane to me.
This is, people know this. This is not a very hidden thing, but I can't believe you didn't know this. And so when we hit 113, I thought it's the first thing that popped in my mind. In every single Pixar film, there is a reference to A113.
It's like a little Easter egg thing?
Yeah. And
But
it's been
mean?
in every single one. What does it mean?
Yeah, what is it a reference to?
It's a reference to the classroom at the California Institute of Arts where most of the animators went to school, and they all had their animation classes.
That's so
This is not
cool.
something most people know, Paul.
You didn't know that? I think
No.
I would encourage people to write in that they know it. Yeah, look, I just looked it up as you were doing that.
Yeah.
It's an inside joke, an Easter egg in media created by alumni of California Institute of the Arts, referring to the classroom used by graphic design and character animations, including John Lasseter, Tim Burton, Brad Bird, because they all went to school together.
Wow, yeah.
Okay.
Good to know. Learned something new today.
You don't know that? It's like it's like license plates. It's in all these different ones. And then this weekend we just rented Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a giant A113 in it, which I always laugh every time I see it because sometimes it's hidden, but this one's super giant because there's so many Easter eggs in that movie.
Now I'm going to have to keep an eye out.
For it.
Yeah.
So this is episode 113. And Audrey, you bring us an episode today. What do you bring?
Okay, so this episode is a really fun one. It's on CAIS++, which is the student branch for the Center for AI and Society at USC.
Center for Artificial Intelligence and Society.
What did I say?
No, you said AI. I'm just making sure we weren't
yes, okay.
using an acronym inside of an acronym and making sure people understood what it meant.
I like that. Eliminate acronyms. Yes. This is about the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Society student branch at the University of Southern California. But, yeah.
What does the plus mean?
So there's a group called CAIS at USC.
It's a research group.
Yeah. And it's mostly graduate. So CAIS++ is a student branch open to undergraduate students and graduate students. So they're two kind of separate groups, but they work together with the same mission.
Okay, cool. And so the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Society, there are a number of different professors that work through that, but mainly the main professor is Dr. Melinda Tombe in the Computer Science Department. And I think one of the main things, correct me if I'm wrong, is this idea of using artificial intelligence and machine learning-driven algorithms to make a difference in real-world problems. And I think a lot of people have a hard time connecting computers or AI to things that are going on other than it's just really incredibly cool. Is that what the students are doing essentially?
Yeah, there's a really incredible sort of humanistic aspect to all the work they're doing. And the students, they kind of run this portion of it. And there's a group of students who started it a couple years ago, and they bring in different projects. So they have guided projects where it's really about teaching kids about AI, because that's one big problem in AI right now, right? That just not enough people have these skills. And then they have deliverables where it's more about working on a project that's going to help a certain organization or further an idea. So a lot of them are involved linguistics or social work or sort of different aspects of different areas of research, really, of work going on at USC that we don't typically see involved in engineering, or we don't think of it. So one project that was really cool was working on sort of saving languages that are dying out. And so it just, I think the group really focuses on bringing people into AI and bringing different sort of cultures, too, almost into AI. And
that's great.
Yeah, it was really cool to talk about.
What was one thing that you had either assumed you knew about artificial intelligence or didn't know at all and kind of have discovered it through this process?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really know much about artificial intelligence as a mechanical engineer, but...
So what have you learned?
What have I learned? One thing that has really been fascinating for me that kind of started when I was talking to some of the students in CAIS++ was this idea of bias in AI and how damaging that can be. And I'm actually in a cinema class right now, and I'm working on, like, some research on AI as, like, a storyteller, so it kind of drew me into that, too, like... how problematic it can be on one hand if like data is inherently biased or the people working on these algorithms are biased. And that's one of the projects in CAIS++ is sort of removing bias in AI. So that's an area that I think is really compelling, just, you know, in general in AI. And
because when it uses 100 years of completely biased data, then you're going to create a biased artificial intelligence that's only going to learn from that.
Right. Like inherently that will be flawed unless you work to remove that.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Like gender roles in films. Like is that what you're getting at with your film course? Yeah,
that's something I've kind of been thinking about. Just one, if the people working on artificial intelligence are like primarily men, of course, that can be problematic. And then of course, sometimes just the way that we collect data can be biased, you know, due to the resources we have or whatever factors. But I just think it's just like a really interesting question to kind of think about with an AI. And CAIS is doing a project on that. But of course they have like other projects that are, you know, working on different sort of like specific problems. Like I mentioned, the language one. They have some certain ones with healthcare where they're working on different diseases and how AI can help detect it with imaging. So that's just one issue that kind of was of interest to me. But they're working on a ton of stuff, which is awesome. But
cool. That's awesome. Well, before we get you off into this episode, we do have, I'm looking at you and I'm talking slowly so you can pick up your phone and get it ready.
Wait, I think we've done this with Audrey before.
Have we done this already?
Yeah. We've done quick fire questions, right?
No.
No, we haven't done this, Rhea. No. I'm like, Rhea.
Okay. Tell some more stories about weird movie facts. Give me like 2 seconds.
We talked about this, like, oh my God. And you literally just said, Audrey's in next week. We need to make sure you do that.
Oh my God, you're so right.
And every time I'm like, why do we keep forgetting this?
I've had my coffee. I've had enough sleep.
And the best part about this was you're looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like,
what are you talking about?
I'm like, come on, Rhea, get your list out. So we are trying to remember this, and we're doing a horrible job, as you can tell, to bring in the quick fire questions. These are lightning round questions. Okay. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not going to time you, but you need to answer them as quickly as possible.
First answer that comes in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Cake or pie?
Oh gosh, pie.
Godfather or Star Wars?
Godfather.
How many times did you sneeze in the last 7 days?
Honestly, a lot. Like 30.
Are you doing okay?
Allergies are hitting hard.
Do you like the word dapper?
No.
Big dogs or small dogs?
Big dogs.
How many hours of sleep do you need?
Need. I would say 6.
Do you respect Kanye West?
Not really.
Say good day, mate, in an Australian accent.
Oh, okay. Good day, mate.
That was no accent whatsoever.
Accents? It's hard.
We need to call Miranda back.
Yeah, that's a question for Miranda.
What's your favorite carb? Bread, pasta, rice, or potatoes?
Potatoes.
Stale Sour Patch Kids or fresh circus peanuts?
Stale Sour Patch Kids.
Really?
I kind of like them most.
Paper or plastic?
Paper.
Are rats cute?
No.
And that's it. That's a different list.
That was a different list. That was a good one. Thanks for joining us on our lightning round questions. And with that, we'll get out of the way and hand it back to you to go over CAIS++.
This week's episode brings the first installment in a new series called Engineering Impact. Through this series, Viterbi Voices will profile students, organizations, and people at USC who are taking engineering beyond technical innovation and doing work for social good. I have personally always been impressed by the desire of students in Viterbi to mobilize their engineering skills to do something more and make a positive impact on the lives of people. I hope that this series can tell the stories of these students. Over the past couple of weeks, I have had the pleasure of learning about one of the organizations that I think does this best, CAIS++, or the Center for Artificial Intelligence in Society, student branch. I spoke with 4 students involved in the organization.
My name is Lucas. I am a computer science major, currently a junior, and I'm from the Bay Area.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I am an astronautical engineering major, currently a junior, and from San Diego.
Awesome. So my name is Lena. I'm a sophomore computer science and cognitive science major here at USC.
So my name is Sean. I'm a sophomore studying computer engineering and computer science.
With a group of their friends, Lauren and Lucas helped to start CAIS++ their freshman year. Lucas now serves as the president, and Lena and Sean serve on the executive board as VP of Outreach and VP of Operations, respectively. CAIS++ is a unique organization at USC because it empowers students by teaching them AI skill sets and pushing them to employ these for social good. Sean explains the unique power of CAIS++'s societal focus.
So CAIS is, there's a graduate organization called CAIS, and the undergraduate spin-off of that is called CAIS++. And so what the organization as a whole is about using artificial intelligence and machine learning for social change. And so what our main goal is to be able to work on projects and work as a team to kind of tackle issues from a social standpoint. We help various organizations, folks with social equity. We've helped local governments with issues that they may have had, and our goal is just to have an impact on society.
CAIS++ is now one of the most popular clubs at USC, but it started out as an idea during Lucas's Explore interview 3 years ago.
I'll start from the very beginning.
It was a rainy night.
Yeah, it was actually at Explore. I was coming in for an interview, and my interviewer was a guy called Professor Milan, and he said he was doing some machine learning research, which sounded cool. So in my interview, he actually asked me some questions about that. And we had a little bit of a back and forth on some ML topics. And eventually when I got to campus, I wanted to start doing some machine learning research. So I tried to think back to the name of the professor that I worked with. And I looked at the CS the CS faculty page and kind of scrolled all the way up and down and saw a face that looked familiar, and it was Milan. So I just shot him an email, told him I was interested in doing some research, and we had a couple meetings when I first got there, and I think it was pretty much at the first one he mentioned he was starting this new Center for AI in Society, and that he wanted to get undergrads involved in it as well. What happened then was he set up a meeting between a couple students who were interested. So I think it was me, Lauren. I don't know if you were there.
Not sure I was, because I was with Liz.
Okay. So there were a couple undergrads. Most of them were seniors. And since they're going to be graduating soon, it didn't really make sense for them to start an organization. So they were like, Lucas, you do it. I was like, okay.
Gosh.
So I reached out to a couple other friends, mostly from my floor, honestly, who were interested in that too. And then I guess word somehow spread. We got a pretty small group of people together, tried to schedule weekly meetings, didn't really know what we were doing, but yeah, it took a while to really figure out what we wanted to do as an organization. So we put on some public events, and those went pretty well. We had pretty good turnout. Eventually we decided a lot of USC undergrads don't have prior AI experience. And that's kind of a problem if you want to start an AI organization. So the summer after freshman year, we got a couple people on eBoard to write a little 8-week curriculum that people could go through. So that took a lot of time and a lot of division of labor. But eventually we got it done, and we went out and started recruiting for real. And then at that point we started to get a lot of interest now that we had something actually put together. So yeah, I think the semester after that was when we started running our in-person workshops and everything. And gradually, we had enough people who were capable enough to run some real projects. And then, yeah, we kept on iterating off of that, like having a new curriculum group join each semester, as well as having the more experienced people work on and or lead projects. And we pretty much took it from there. People were really excited, pretty much from the get-go, which was really cool to see.
Today, Lucas is the president of a thriving organization with multiple ongoing projects. CAIS++ is structured in a way that lends itself to learning. In addition to the 8-week curriculum new members unfamiliar with AI go through in the fall, the organization takes on guided projects which are centered around developing skills. These projects help train newer members so they can later move on to larger deliverable projects, as Lena notes.
So we have 2 categories of projects. Guided projects are for members. They're internally led by our own team members, and they don't have an external deliverable, so they're mainly for learning. And I guess some examples of our guided projects are, we have an Airbnb data extraction project for predicting analytics about neighborhoods.
Oh, cool.
We have a machine learning fairness project, and that's awesome because that's such a hot field right now in AI. We have a reinforcement learning chess project, and then a stock market prediction project. So all of those, they're internal, club-led. There's no external person we're going to hand these over to. It's mainly for learning. And then we have some pro bono projects, which we work with professors in labs around campus. And in the future, we're going to try to work with more nonprofits.
Okay.
And some examples of those are, we work with the Brain and Creativity Institute, with a number of researchers there. So one of them is with the Kingston Man, where we're trying to represent a concept, like what does it mean to have an idea in your brain? That's what we have a group working on that. So we use like variational autoencoders, things like that, to see like when I see an image or hear a sound, something goes on in my brain, and we try to map that. So that's one project. Then I'm actually on this next project. It's called The Death of a Language. It's with Professor Khalil Iskaros, and that's basically using deep learning to preserve dying languages. So we have an audio data set of spoken Ladine. It's a language from the Italian Alps. Okay. It's only spoken by about 20,000 people in the world now. And so our focus now is to try to preserve that language by extracting linguistic information, running models to do that. The long-term goal is to make a generalizable model that can preserve any language by hearing its audio.
As Lena's language preservation research emphasizes, CAIS++ takes on projects that weave between disciplines such as anthropology, medicine, or geography.
Yeah, I think like pretty much all of our projects are connected to some other domain that's not necessarily like just in computer science. So I worked on a project that was related to Kawasaki disease, which is a rare heart condition that affects children usually pretty young. And most times it goes undiagnosed because the symptoms are pretty outward appearing, but it looks pretty much just like a fever and maybe some rashes. So a lot of doctors don't know what it is. So we were working with a clinic at UCSD to look at some past examples of kids that did end up getting diagnosed with this and seeing what patterns we could find within those patients that are markers for the disease. It's still kind of in progress, but yeah, that kind of shows all the different fields we work with. So there's the language project, there's that Kawasaki disease project that was happening. There's another project related to trying to create a map of the different language street signs there are in Los Angeles. So where can you find Spanish street signs? Where can you find Korean street signs? That sort of thing. Pretty much most domains, you can find some sort of AI application.
Mm-hmm. We have so many different projects that are for social good. So another example is we're doing Parkinson disease detection from data. That's also with Khalil Iskaros, so we have another project going there. And then also with the Brain and Creativity Institute, we're doing we're building models to predict connections between music genres and mental responses. And then our last pro bono project this semester is with the School of Public Policy here on campus, where we have a data set of hundreds of languages in LA and their locations, and we're building a model that can sort of detect what language is going on, what language is prevalent inside each borough of the city,
right?
And try to make that robust to physical obstruction. If there's a tree in the image, for example, we have a huge data set.
CAIS++ includes an impressive amount of breadth within their portfolio of projects. What really makes the organization unique, however, is that the group isn't just focused on making a product. Rather, they aim to make a broader, positive impact through all of their work. This socially minded ethos is part of what drew Sean to the group.
I saw the name when I first joined, and I was like, oh, cool, this is artificial intelligence for society. But then once I got in, I really saw how the culture was so focused towards, like, giving back and kind of having an impact. And that, I think, sets us apart, because all these organizations are very focused on making things and creating things, creating a deliverable in a sense.
Right.
And we are too. But we place an extra emphasis on making that deliverable something that has a social impact.
One of the projects Lena mentioned earlier was one on machine learning fairness, which is one of the more serious issues facing AI today.
There's kind of a problem in machine learning where if you feed in biased data, you're going to get biased outputs. So I guess, like, to make sense of that, you kind of have to understand that machine learning gives you kind of a mapping from one input to an output. So that input might be, for example, like some demographic data, and the output might be like a predicted like salary or something along those lines. What's going to happen is, so let's say like you want to train a model to decide who to admit to college. You're going to take in demographic data, like everything that you fill out on the Common App, maybe even like the actual text of your college essays and that sort of thing. So what you're going to do if you're a machine learning researcher is you're going to train this model on past data. So if your past data is biased, for example, like let's say most CS undergraduates in the last 50 years have been male, like that's going to show up in your data. And when you train the model on it, that's going to affect the output as well, because it's going to think like males are more likely to be computer science majors, so we'll admit more of them. And that's definitely not what you want if you're actually deploying this in the real world. So there's a lot of research going on now that's trying to figure out how can we ensure that if your gender changes one way or the other, or let's say you decide to hide one variable like race or gender or something like that, it doesn't affect the output. So you can kind of control for these sensitive variables. And that's one example of something that I think is going to be pretty big in the next couple years. Hopefully it'll be big if people really care about the implications of AI, which is something we want to push for, of course. But ensuring that biased data doesn't create biased models is something that I think is going to be really important moving forward.
Lena echoes Lucas's sentiment, noting that inherently flawed datasets create inherently flawed algorithms.
Well, I guess machine learning fairness has to do with how the algorithms, when they're deployed into the real world, they make decisions based on the data that they have, and if the data set itself possesses some statistical bias towards some gender or race, the model will also be biased. And right now there's lots of researchers looking into how to de-bias and unbias these data sets and how to approach those problems. Like, do we focus on changing society as a whole and the culture, or do we focus on like doing some stats data techniques to remove some bias?
By valuing expertise in and outside of engineering, CAIS++ dismantles common perceptions of who a computer scientist might be. In doing so, the group empowers people who might not otherwise get involved in AI enter the field. Putting a more diverse set of critical eyes on data and inspiring different types of people to work in AI represent the ways in which CAIS++ combats machine learning bias in addition to their own research on the topic.
It's interesting because we have a lot of neuroscience majors. We have a few business majors in there. Our goal is like, it's very technical stuff. It's very heavy material, but we want to open it up to anyone who's interested. If you're, say you're a business major and you're interested in machine learning, and you have a passion for it, come on in. We'd love to have you. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily like you have to be an expert in this material in order to help us out. If you have a passion for machine learning, and if you have a passion to have an impact on society, you're the person we're looking for this organization. The main goal of this organization is to not only have an impact on society, but have an impact on people and show them that, like, empower them in a sense. Like, hey, I can do this. I'm able to do something that has an impact outside of my homework and my grade. And if you can instill that if you can instill that mentality on someone, they are way more likely to try and come back.
Through this, you all have empowered so many people who maybe wouldn't have gone into AI to get into AI.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I will speak to that. I think, like, if I've gotten just a couple people who maybe would never have thought about them, like, being in AI, if I just got a couple of those people to maybe join an organization and then learn more about AI and maybe consider pursuing a career in it, and they end up really enjoying it and having a blast, that would make me extremely happy.
How do you think having a diverse group of people working in AI changes that?
I think if you have a diverse group, then you're just more aware of the problem. I think the odds of someone, like, raising their hand and saying, hey, are we sure we're supposed to be doing this? Like, should we consider, like, this possibility, or maybe we want to hide this variable from the model? I think the more diverse of a group you have, the more likely it is that those questions will be asked, and the more likely it is that they will be addressed.
Through its curriculum and diverse community, CAIS++ has built a structure where students learn from each other. This systematic knowledge transfer helps to create mindful engineers who have built up a contextualized understanding of the world that allows them to have conversations with non-engineers and craft effective solutions.
I think it's very easy in college to build a competitive mindset. And while that has competition has a place, but at the same time, knowledge is power. So, I mean, to me, in my mind, the idea that you would, restrict someone from knowledge just doesn't make intuitive sense, especially when you have a 4-year turnover rate, right? Like, at the end of the day, Lucas is going to graduate, and there's got to be someone that takes Lucas's place, like, just at the end of the day, right? And as far as that's concerned, as far as creating mindful engineers, roping in this whole social good aspect, and especially when you're playing with something like AI, which has incredible social ramifications that you wouldn't think of, it walks very closely with ethics. So kind of putting yourself in that mental space of dealing with, a massive amount of data of what's this trial, what am I doing, what features is it emphasizing, and what is it picking up on that I can't really see, it almost kind of provides itself this, okay, I need to step back and look at what I'm doing. Because if you don't walk the line with ethics and AI, you run into the problems of where people start seeing, it's Terminator, right? So kind of cultivating an environment where you can create mindful engineers, I think, was really one of also the foundational goals of the club. And just everyone I remember in that room, like, that was something that was always talked about. There was no one sitting there going, okay, we should just do the technical, or only let the technical people in. Like, that wasn't really a context, because at that point we were all aware, like, a diverse working environment creates diverse ideas, which translates to, like, really impactful solutions. And at the end of the day, like, one engineer isn't going to, build the entire thing by themselves. It's not going to happen. And especially when you're dealing with, very large-scale social or engineering issues, or just issues on any, like, world population level, in order to combat those, you have to do it from multiple angles. So when you're harnessing a tool like AI, as CAIS++ does with, these projects, it's important to have people kind of on all fronts seeing the different perspectives. Like you mentioned with the Kawasaki disease, like, having those different dialogues and having those different vocabularies is, integral to coming up with an effective solution that's good on a society scale outside of an engineering scale, right? Something can look great on paper, the engineering can be there, the numbers can be there, but if no one understands it, no one's going to understand it, right? You can't just have that one team that gets it and it's good and you send it and it's perfect, right? So I think CAIS++ is incredibly unique and is in the fact that it actively tries and makes an effort to kind of harness the discourse on all fronts and just approach engineering problems from, okay, what if we pivot that and put it on a social point of view? And I think CAIS++ also does a really good job at valuing those other perspectives, at least from what I've seen. Like, it's never like, oh, your vocabulary is different than mine, therefore I am better. It's like, no, your vocabulary is different from mine, and I don't know your vocabulary, so we should learn from each other, right? And I think that's one of the driving forces that I saw in CAIS++ that really, made me stick with it through that entire first year.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, like, even since the first time we did interviews, like, once we started doing full recruitment, I think having kind of like a social good leaning was there from the beginning, and it's something that we kind of looked for. I also think for the curriculum, one of the main reasons we implemented it at first was just because not many people had that much AI experience coming in. So it's kind of hard to start an AI organization if you don't have enough people to draw from. So that opened up our doors to a lot of applicants that I think we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I also think the group of students that have prior AI experience coming into USC are a pretty self-selecting group. And I think that if we hadn't had a curriculum and it expected prior AI experience, our group would be a lot less diverse than it is right now. I think like among the CS organizations, we probably have a lot more people in like comp neuro, applied math, a bunch of different majors, which I guess it kind of makes sense because for AI, like math is a bigger part of it. It's not just like software engineering. But yeah, I think having the curriculum there helps make AI accessible. And at the end of the day, I think that's a really good thing for our club. And it's a good thing for the field as a whole.
CAIS++ pushes students to view problems from a variety of perspectives, not just the technical.
So it's very easy to get caught up in the, okay, let me learn as many technical skills as I can because this makes me employable. But it's also, I think CAIS++ forces, in a very positive way, this perspective of, okay, so you can be a good engineer, but to be a good engineer and a good person are two different things, right? And it's almost like the fact that they can even be two different things is mind-blowing. This notion that you need to take that technical skill set and apply it somewhere. And in order to apply it somewhere and make that effective and to get people on board and to kind of drive this passion and this mission to change the current state of the world, because that's what engineering is about. Engineering is about articulating better solutions to big problems. But if you can't see those problems in the first place, what are you articulating solutions to? Right? And I think CAIS++ is empowering in the sense that it provides and it stimulates an environment where you are you look at things from a different perspective than you otherwise would. And you're also, I think people that come into CAIS++, if, like Lucas said, a lot of this is the fact that you have that drive towards social good or that inclination or maybe your ideas when you think about technology and like the evolving world, they kind of have this, dichotomy, not even, but just this, they play with each other back and forth. And when you come into CAIS++, there's such like a wide array of topics that it can be applied towards and such a wide array of discourse that you gain from that. And kind of being able to articulate your technical skill set with someone else's knowledge is incredibly empowering for both parties, because not only are you going to learn theirs, but they're going to learn yours. And in that, not only do both parties walk away with more knowledge, but you articulate something that otherwise wouldn't have come to be if it was just one party or the other. That's where the true engineering, in my opinion, lies. Like, that's what it means to be an engineer.
CAIS++ provides the space for students to employ their skill sets, experiment, and sometimes fail.
I think for me, it's this idea of, here's a kind of a foundational basis and a tool set to work from, and there's nothing preventing you from just going out, short of, breaking the laws of physics or incessant compile time errors. Like, nothing is stopping you from giving something a try. And CAIS++ is willing, to provide that curriculum, to provide that toolbox, and to provide the resources to just get out there and do a project. Like, there is nothing stopping you. If you're wrong, you're wrong, And I think that's sometimes a really hard mentality to overcome. Just the idea of, oh my God, what if I'm wrong? What if this comes to nothing? And CAIS++ feels like a safe workspace for experimentation. And I think that's really important, especially for young engineers, just up and coming and just, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but here's the data set and I'm just going to take a stab at it. Like, I'm just going to try it because I can.
Right.
And I think that that's something that I hope members of CAIS++ get out of the organization.
Yeah. I think all of our projects kind of have this stipulation that, like, you might put a lot of time into it over the semester, and even if you do, like, it still might not work. I think that's just a part that comes from the fact that a lot of our projects are more research-oriented, where you can't just, like, set out a weekly to-do list and go ahead and do that every week, and then at the end of the semester you're done. Like, you have a finished product. For us, it's a lot more, like, maybe the data set just like doesn't have enough signal to learn anything meaningful. Maybe the types of models we know about aren't the right fit. So yeah, some projects do work out and get pretty good results. Some maybe not, but that's kind of the expectation. And it's totally okay if you like try something and you work hard at it and then your model doesn't work.
Lucas also hopes that people can simply meet others who are passionate about different fields and learn from them.
I hope they get to meet people who are really cool, really interested in the same things that other people are interested in. For me, that's what I've gotten out of it. Like, I live with a couple people who I met through the club, and it's been really cool to, like, see what they're working on. I can give you an example. Like, my roommate, Jacob, he is really into music. He's been playing bass pretty much his whole life. And when he is active in the club, most of the time he's working on, like, an AI music-related project. So I'll come home and see him playing around with, like, these, I don't know, I don't even know, like, what to call them, but a lot of, like, music analysis tools that I've never really seen before. So at the end of the day, we're, like, kind of applying the same techniques, right? Like, there's some neural network stuff thrown in there, but it's working toward, like, a completely different domain than what I would typically work on. So you can kind of see how there's so many, like, different fields you can go into, and it kind of opens your mind and it shows you, like, how much you don't know. So I think meeting those people and, like, seeing what they're interested in and talking to them is probably one of the main things that I hope someone would take away.
After working to grow CAIS++ to what it is today, this semester will be Lucas's last one as a part of the organization. He looks forward to seeing CAIS++ evolve, but maintain its commitment to social good.
It's my last semester, I think.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, it's been, I think I've probably learned more through this experience than I have through, like, all my other classes combined. Leading different teams of people, like, through the past couple semesters, it's been really interesting to get it to the point where, like, I can step back, and I'm pretty confident that I could leave for a month and come back and things would be okay, and things would be running pretty smoothly. I think it wasn't always like that. Like, it took a while for it to get to that point, and I had to learn a lot about, like, what sort of systems should you set up within your team so that, like, if one person has to leave for a bit of time, there's someone else who can take up that responsibility. I think it's also really weird because for me, it's like a fun thing to do. It's kind of been like my hobby project for the past couple semesters, and just seeing how excited people have gotten and, like, how into this idea people are, it's really, really cool. And I still don't think I've processed it completely. Like, I think once I step down and I look back, I'll be like, dang, like, that was pretty cool. And I'll really have time to process, like, what went well, what could have been improved, and just kind of reflect on, like, the past couple semesters. But right now, like, I'm still setting the agenda each week. I'm still kind of stuck in that role, so it's kind of hard to reflect on it now. But I think that looking back, this will probably be the thing that I remember most from my college career. Because, you know, it's really cool to be able to start something that, like, will probably last for a couple years after you graduate.
It'll last longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it will.
CAIS++ has a long future ahead.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. I'm really glad to have been able to make that mark.
And that's about it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and now Spotify. And as always, fight on.